Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Welcome to the online class. I'm your course instructor Muhammad Waqas for the course Climate Change ENS-361. Today is lecture number 10, and in this lecture we will talk about the climate change with perspectives and implications for Pakistan. Discussion agenda for today's lecture is comprised of the key climate change indicators in Pakistan, in which we will study the risk and vulnerability of Pakistan. Similarly, we will talk about the key feature of climate change policy of Pakistan, in which mainly we will study the climate change policy by our government. Furthermore, we will talk about the climate change is a determinant of security and development of a nation, or simply we can say security and development of Pakistan. And at the end, we will talk about the implication for Pakistan, that what will be the impacts of the climate change on water security, public health, food security, sea level, and national security. First of all, if we talk about the climate change indicators in Pakistan, as you know that the environment and climate change are linked to sustainable development. And in this regard, Pakistan requires greater progress in environmental protection as the water scarcity is increasing, land productivity is decreasing, and climate change is worsening. All these threats, the risk of natural disaster by the climate change as well as the economic shocks is adding the existing vulnerability, means that are increasing the vulnerability of Pakistan to the climate change. Similarly, the climate change is inevitable, and it's a prospective threat multiplier for Pakistan. National security is Pakistan is placed very high in climate risk and vulnerability. In recent years, it has been shown visible changes in Pakistan hydrological cycle have been observed in the form of, for example, changing the precipitation patterns, the droughts, water availability periods, frequency and intensity of heat waves, precipitation events or changes in precipitation, weather induced natural disasters. Going ahead, if we talk about the precipitation over Pakistan has increased an average of 25%. However, in near future, no significant change is expected in the annual rainfall. And on the basis of the data, it is projected that the climate change will increase and variability of monsoon rains, resulting in increased frequency that will cause severity of floods and will impact some droughts. If we talk about the greenhouse gases emission, Pakistan contributes very little, that is 135, is placed at 135th to the greenhouse gases, but remain one of the most vulnerable countries. It contributed up to 0.8 of the total global greenhouse gases emission. It's still not too much with respect to some other countries like China and other European countries. Uh, in addition, the total estimated area under forest covered in Pakistan is around 4.22 million hectares, which comprises of 4.8 of the total land masses. The second one, if we talk about the key features of climate change policy of the country of Pakistan, are simply the climate change policy of Pakistan. Uh, Climate change is not only a development challenge, but also a development opportunity. In order to cope with the challenge, and tap the opportunity, the Ministry of Climate Change has prepared, the Ministry of Climate Change of Pakistan has prepared a national climate change policy that is approved by the Federal Cabinet in September 2012. Later on, a framework for implementation of national climate change policy was developed in 2013. The broader goal of the climate change policy is to ensure that climate change is the mainstreamed in the economically and socially vulnerable sector of economy to steer the country toward climate resilient development. Similarly, the implementation, if you talk about the implementation of the policy, the implementation framework include all those things which are doable and implementable. The adaptation, mitigation, and transfer of technology are the major areas which require policy interventions. Moreover, the provision of finance, capacity building, and raising awareness are the other important areas which are required high attention. Response to the climate change by adaptation and mitigation. So both adaptation and mitigation are the two key methods to respond to climate change. What we do in adaptation, water resources, agriculture, livestock, health, forestry, biodiversity, disaster preparedness, socio-economic measures are the key sector which require policy intervention. Similarly, under mitigation, energy, transport, agriculture, forestry, town planning, management, including waste management, are the major areas needing policy intervention. Similarly, if we talk about the international community versus Pakistan, international community is keen in mitigation measures, but Pakistan should focus more on adaptation measures. Pakistan needs to position itself and present its case to the developed world. For what purpose? To secure adaptation funding. It should ensure the access and effectiveness of the opportunity available internationally for the adaptation and mitigation, like for example through a green climate fund, clean development mechanism, adaptation fund, global environment facility, World Bank's forest carbon partnership facility, and carbon credit trading. Establishing a Pakistan Climate Change Fund is essential. For what purpose? For to finance the climate change, different climate change related projects. In addition to all these, there is also a need to develop public, corporate, civil society partnership. For what purpose? For financing and the implementation of climate change adaptation and mitigation measures. There should be a procedure system in place to create domestic carbon market opportunity and introducing an appropriate investment framework that will be linked with the regional banking institution. Similarly, the government of Pakistan has formed a national climate change policy implementation committee. Basically, this committee, and the main purpose of this committee to ensure an effective implementation of national climate change policy and action plans that we have discussed in the previous slides, and to oversee their progress in this regard. So the tasks of the committee include regular monitoring and upgrading of the national climate change policy after every for a certain period of time, most probably after every 5 years. The composition of the committee includes a chairman, that is Federal Minister of climate change secretaries for the Ministry of Climate Change, Planning and Development, Foreign Affairs, Science and Technology. Similarly, the committee also comprised of member infrastructure of planning commission, additional chief secretaries of provincial planning. Similarly, it's also comprised of chairman of national disaster management authority, federal flood commission, secretaries of provincial for all provinces as Jammu and Kashmir, Gilgit Baltistan, environment departments, head of Pakistan Meteorological Department, Global Change Impact Study Center. In addition, the committee also comprised of Chief of Environment Planning and Development Division, and similarly, the three representatives from corporate sectors, that is Chamber of Commerce and Industries. Similarly, three experts from the field, that is from environment or climate change, three representatives from civil society organization, and DG climate change. Basically, these are the committee, National Climate Change Policy Implementation Committee. The third one is the climate change is a determinant of security and development. Uh, Basically, if we talk about Pakistan, Pakistan's three major climate change challenges are related to flood, drought, and sea intrusion. And the consequences are water and food scarcity, health issues, and population displacement. Knowing of these threats, food security, health issue, population displacement, the government has taken some significant steps to address the issues, like establishment of the Global Change Impact Study Center, GCSIC. Similarly, the Vision 2025 also highlights, the Vision 2025 is basically presented by the Pakistan, also highlights resources scarcity issue among other. But the linkages with the consequences of climate change and its negative impacts need some more implication. That's in Vision 2025. We need some more amendments and amplification related to the climate change, its negative consequences. Similarly, if we talk about the smokes in Pakistan, the phenomena of smoke in Pakistan during winter has increased over the past 15 years, and it affects the human health, crops, forest, beside having some negative consequences on environment. Uh, in addition to these, if we talk about the development, the societal capacity is adversely affected by extremely low human development index, poverty, and societal fissures. Restraints and civility can quickly perish when people confronted with the imperious necessity. In addition to all these, the environmental stress in Pakistan is more pronounced due to the limited capacity of the state to cope with, uh, for example, confronted with the hostile neighbor, ever ready to exploit our internal vulnerability. Climate change become a serious threat to Pakistan national security. In Pakistan, most of the socially vulnerable segments or regions reside in the area that are more prone to climate hazard, resulting in pronounced impacts. For example, Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, with very low human development and high deprivation indexes, are a case in point where another major disaster can prove to be a tipping point. In physical security, we have witnesses in the recent decades several disasters in the form of flood, etc., as well as drought also. The fourth one is the implication for Pakistan, or simply we can say what will be the impacts of the climate change for Pakistan. Among that, the first one is the water security. Um we all know that Pakistan is a water stress country. Extremely shortage of freshwater resources is here in Pakistan. Uh, in 2006, as predicted in the World Bank report, that the freshwater availability is heading toward less than 1,000 cubic meter per year by 2035. Uh, as you know that in Pakistan, the primary sources of water are rainfall, by that is received from monsoon, and uh, the glaciers and snow melt from the Hindu Kush and Karakoram Himalayas that feed the Indus river system. Uh, Sorry, the water scarcity by 2030 would impact, as I told you earlier, that according to the World Bank in 2006, that about the water scarcity. So the water scarcity by 2030 would impact, because Pakistan is an agriculture country. So the scarcity of water would impact agricultural productivity and could affect the food availability, or simply we can say worsen the food security. The second one is the public health. As you know that climate change induce extreme temperatures, the periods of extreme temperatures, and affect the rainfall event that may cause increasing the accidents of different diseases like diarrhea and many vector-borne and different bacteria, or simply we can say viral diseases. As for example, we have a case study in 2011 that was too much alarming. About 20,000 individual got affected by dengue. Oh, for to combat with the dengue in Punjab, the central province has harnessed it well, while the situation in other provinces is very terrible. The third one is the consequences of climate change for Pakistan. The most important one is the food security. Um in the next 3 to 4 decades, the Himalayan and Karakoram glaciers will retreat, will replenish, right? That will increase the flow in the Indus River system, and this flow will reduce to 30 to 40% after that. And if the flow is affected, that will threaten the food and livelihood security of the people. Or simple, we can say the livelihood security of the Indus Barren irrigation system. The people that are dependent on the Indus Barren irrigation system. Uh, Since 1952, about 4,544 uh, agriculture land, for 4,544 hectare agriculture land has been destroyed along the Humbus Valley stream, and this area was irrigated to through Ochito River by regular flow of Indus River up to 1960s. The fourth one is the rise in the sea level. The rise in the sea level along Pakistan would have the following implication. Among them is the erosion of the coastal region, the coastal plain flooding, deltaic plain inundation, salinization of aquifer and soil, loss of habitat for wildlife, fish, birds, uh, and plants. Similarly, the fifth one is the national security. Yes, how the climate change will impact the national security, because the destabilization effect of drought, floods, intense weather condition would could overwhelm, or simply we can say impact, the disaster response management capacities of our government. And simply you can see that in recent decade Pakistan has witnessed different type of environmental consequences in the form of flood and drought, and all these consequences strongly impact the disaster response management capacities of our country. So this was all about for today class. Inshallah, in next class we will go further for the government steps that has been taken to tackle the climate change consequences of Pakistan. Thank you so much for today class. See you in next class.